Hey friends, Sean here, Mr. Hero Support Guy, your friendly neighborhood guide to the good life. Hope you're doing well today. Got a quick little video clip for you from The Walking Dead, Season 5, Episode 15. For those of you that aren't familiar, I'll explain in a second what's going on with this video clip. But I want to use this video clip to just give you a quick example of the difference between three different types of life management styles and how they relate to creating and protecting good situations, the kind that are good for human beings, right? I'm always saying that we want to try to manage situations or our lifescape in a way that allows the situation to have a high level of positive impact potential. In other words, a likelihood of having a positive effect on us when we're in that situation. And I talk about how we want to try to live heroically or to be facilitators of positive life outcomes, right? That's what heroes are. They're guardians of the good life. And I always tell you guys, that some of you are trying to be guardians of the good life, and some of you may not have thought of yourself as that. But I believe that we're all on a journey to becoming highly influential and effective managers of day to day life situations, right? It's just another way of saying adulting, and we're all destined to become guardians of the good life. And the reason is because you need to be a guardian of the good life in order to create and protect the kind of situations in which human beings can be well and do well in life, right? And the reason is because we live in a world where there are things that aren't good for us, right? Driving your car off the road isn't a good choice, right? Because you could die or you could ruin your vehicle and then you won't have it anymore. Um, Eating something poisonous, not good for you. Going to make you sick, right? Or could kill you. Hanging out with a rattlesnake, probably not a good idea because you could get bit and get poisoned. Same thing with in this situation, The Walking Dead. Rick is a guy who is trying to stay alive in a post-apocalyptic zombie world. And he has a son named Carl, and they're both just trying to navigate from obstacle to obstacle to obstacle each and every day, all day long. That's all they do is try to stay alive, right? And they have zombies coming after them, and they have a lot of villainous characters, right, in this story as well. Well, what happens is that Rick comes upon this community called Alexandria, and it's inside of a wall, and it's being managed by a lady named Deanna, and she's a nice person. But what happens is Rick, who used to be a sheriff in his old life, starts to notice that there's a man in the community that is engaging in um, mistreatment of his wife and child, right? He's engaging in domestic violence. So, Rick, being a sheriff and also being someone that survived this long, knows that um, letting somebody keep on hurting innocent people is really a threat to his safety and to the safety of his child, right? Because what if that guy that's playing that perpetrator role decides that he would like to hurt Rick, right? And or the kid or the community that Rick has with him there, that used to be with him out in the wild, outside of the wall. What if the perpetrator thinks it'd be fun to abuse them, right? Is that going to be something we just allow? Well, that's the difference between the perpetrator, the enabler, and the facilitator or hero. The uh, the enabler is Deanna, the mayor here, and you're going to see why in a second. So this scene is set up in the sense that Rick has just confronted the perpetrator and told him to stop doing what he's been doing, right? Stop mistreating people, or you can't be in this community. And just as Rick and the guy have been duking it out because the guy didn't, want to go along with that pro-human best practice agenda for living in a community, he just looked at it as Rick being just a kind of a jerk or something. Instead of it actually being what's good for the human in all of them is to be safe, right? Um, he fought back against Rick, and next thing you know, Deanna comes onto the scene, and she tells Rick, "You're the problem, Rick." You can tell from the look on her face that she thinks Rick is the problem. And so Rick gives a little speech, and here's just a couple seconds of it. He says,
Things don't get better because you want them to. Starting right now, we have to live in the real world.
So just a couple simple lines right now there, right? Things don't get better just because you want them to. The good life is not something that's in your fantasy, it's in reality. So you have to cross over from fantasy to reality, right? And the perpetrator is kind of operating from a delusional belief system if he thinks that you can have a good life and at the same time be hurting your wife and kid, right? Because whenever you hurt somebody or mistreat them, they're going to resent you. So they're going to resent the perpetrator. And then they're not going to want to be a teammate with the perpetrator anymore. And then he's going to be left behind, right? That's what happens in so many stories of people that hurt other people. They get left behind. Um, and so he is going to be losing out on a human level when he's left behind. He's no longer part of the community. He's maybe locked up in jail. But in this story, he's going to end up out in the wild with nobody to help protect him from the zombies. So it's in the perpetrator's best interest to have to change his ways and to do like what Rick is inviting him to do and be somebody that has a different management style, right? Start acting differently. And now Rick is kind of talking to Deanna about how she thinks that she's going to have this good life without confronting people like this guy that's hurting somebody. Um, and now, of course, we don't want to confront people if it's unsafe. As you can see, Rick got his face beat up here. It looks kind of bloody and scary looking. But um, what Rick is saying is you have to actually control who lives here. And what I mean by that is your management style. If I know that someone is in the pattern of behavior of hurting people, I don't let them hang out with me or my child or my family. If I know that somebody is in the pattern of enabling that kind of behavior, I don't let them hang out with me or my child or my family. Because if they were in charge of my home and a perpetrator came along and said, I want to come in, the enabler would say, okay, go right ahead. And that's because that's what they habitually do. They respond to those stress triggers by fawning, by giving in. You might have heard of freezing or flighting or fighting. Well, the enabler fawns, right? They try to gain the approval of the oppressor, dominator, exploiter, whatever, by giving in to their demands in the hopes that they'll be safer if they do that. And what they're failing to recognize is that in the long run, they're in much more harm's way, much more danger by that perpetrator than they would be if they had just initially said, no, you can't come in, right? So, um, most people don't ever dare to confront and set that limit because they know that they could get harmed, right? But they overlook the idea or the fact that they're going to be more likely to get harmed if they let the big bad wolf in. And what Rick is saying is if you really are serious about having a community that's violence free and safe and happy, you can't just let people get away with bad behavior, with mistreating other people. And when I say bad behavior, what I mean is doing things that are objectively harmful to themselves and others, right? This is why we have standards and structure in an environment to help facilitate a high level of positive impact. So there's more to that scene for those of you that want to check it out on YouTube. Just type in Rick Grimes, Grimes, the Rick speech, season 5, Walking Dead, as you can see the title there. But I hope that helps you to understand a little bit about why the enabler approach that Deanna is taking is not as effective as the one that Rick has. And it's better to be like Deanna than it is to be like the perpetrator, right? So you have perpetrator withering life. And then in the middle, you have Deanna languishing life, quality of life. And then at the top, you have Rick flourishing quality of life. Even though in this scene he was engaged in a conflict and he was acting like a sheepdog that had to fight the wolf, he was nonetheless able to protect the sheep from the wolf, right? So that's what you look like when you protect the sheep from the wolf. And now the wolf knows not to come back to the sheep, right? But Deanna's way of doing things would allow that wolf to keep having access to the sheep. And so she might seem more civil and sophisticated than the perpetrator, but she's the reason why the situation is not able to be protected. The perpetrator couldn't create a good situation, and the enabler can't protect a good situation. The only one that can both create and protect is Rick and Michonne and Glenn and the other characters that are living heroically in that story. All right, guys. Hope you have a great day and a great life.